So we have a pretty interesting story coming from the Daily Beast of all places, and they're probably covering this because it concerns Hillary Clinton winning. But nonetheless, I think that there's some really illuminating things in here. So they talked about how Bernie Sanders' campaign claims that they tried to help Hillary Clinton's team and provide them with strategic advice, but not only were they ignored, they were just outright mocked. So specifically, when it comes to states that ultimately cost Hillary Clinton the election, like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, well, quote, they fucking ignored us on all these three battleground states while we were sounding the alarm for months. Nomiki Konst, a progressive activist and former Sanders surrogate who served on the 2016 Democratic National Committee Platform Committee, told the Daily Beast, "We kept saying to each other, like, what the fuck? Why are they just blowing us off? They need these voters more than anybody." So they actually met with Hillary Clinton's team at the Democratic National Convention in July to talk about strategy, and they voiced their concern to Hillary Clinton's team, stating that they don't think she has a great general election strategy, and she's shunning half the base. And this is what they said. "Once we were at the convention, Bernie people were on the ground. We could feel it. People were pissed off. They're with their pitchforks ready to fight," Konst recalled. But before the convention, after the platform committee meeting that I was on, Bernie surrogates were talking constantly, saying, "Oh my God, Hillary is going to lose if she doesn't address TPP and free trade and all these other issues." We were looking at the polling and thought that if these people stay home, she'll lose. When their meeting finally happened during the Democratic convention, the progressive activist fears were only inflamed. "We were saying we were offering our help. Nobody wanted President Donald Trump," Konst continued, noting that the Bernie World side was offering Clinton's team their plans, strategy memos, lists of hardened state organizers, timelines, data, the works, to win over certain voters in areas she ultimately lost, but where Sanders had won during the primary. "We were painting them a dire picture, and I couldn't help but think they literally looked like they had no idea what was going on here," she continued. "I remember their faces. It was like they had never fucking heard this stuff before. It's what we had been screaming for the past 9 months. It's like they forgot the basics of Politics 101. As the days and weeks flew by, the Bernie delegation kept underscoring TPP, jobs, union allies, the youth vote, and the environment, and pitched multiple rallies with Sanders in states such as Pennsylvania and Michigan, a state where Sanders unexpectedly beat Clinton in the Democratic primary, and a state that Clinton actively neglected during the general. The math that they lost on is the math we won on," Konst said. "So we wrote out a plan and sent it to them, telling them to stop thinking you're going to get this Obama coalition. It's not going to happen." Assurances were then made with various Clinton senior staffers that they would follow through with subsequent meetings and phone calls to address these gaps and warnings. Instead, the meetings were canceled and rescheduled into oblivion. "We not only screamed about this, we wrote memos and we begged," Jane Klebe, Nebraska Democratic Party chair and another Sanders booster who was at the DNC meeting, said. "I spent a good chunk of time writing memos about how Bernie surrogates could be utilized on the campaign trail, about issue voters, about the environment, Black Lives Matter, Dakota Access Pipeline, rogue cops, you name it. I was also talking specifically about rural communities and how Hillary completely ignored and abandoned anything that we cared about." Klebe noted that instead of subsequent discussion about battleground strategy and resources, what she got was a handful of conference calls where Sanders alumni would get to hear about the 3 top talking points for Hillary Clinton's email server or something. The Clinton campaign believed they had the strongest and brightest people in the room, and they had no concept of why people would choose Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton, Klebe continued. "They mocked us. They made fun of us. They always had a model that was supposed to save the day. We were street activists, and they don't get that, and that's a fundamental divide. They ran a check-the-box, sanitized campaign, and voters don't think like that. You don't win elections that way. To them, we were a leftist nuisance, nothing else," a former senior Sanders campaign aide said. "I offered to help and never heard back from anybody. Quite frankly, I wasn't surprised." Robert Becker, a veteran organizer who ran Iowa and Michigan operations for Sanders' presidential campaign, told the Daily Beast. So this inside look at what went wrong is exactly how it appeared on the outside. Hillary Clinton's team they were clueless. I mean, she made rookie mistakes that a seasoned politician should never make. You don't go on to court neoconservative warmongers like Henry Kissinger and John Negroponte after you shunned half the base. The most liberal wing of the base, Bernie Sanders supporters, you completely not just shunned them, but you gave them the middle finger and spit in their face on top of that. And then you thought that you could make up those votes somehow, that you were losing with neoconservatives. You thought enough Republicans were disillusioned with Trump that they would support you instead? Give me a break. They voted for Donald Trump because they were anti-establishment, and it may be a faux populist message that he was espousing, but nonetheless, they wanted something different. You were not different, Hillary Clinton. You were the same. You were the same status quo politician that got us NAFTA and would potentially get us the TPP. So to think that you can somehow get Republicans over to your side was a joke to me. And look, I myself thought that it would probably be the case that Hillary Clinton would ultimately beat Donald Trump because, look, let's face it, Donald Trump is a beatable opponent. This was a cakewalk for Hillary Clinton. If this were a video game, the election would be on the easiest difficulty imaginable. I mean, if you want to win an election, you run against someone like Donald Trump. So I thought that Hillary Clinton would probably win, even though she ran a terrible campaign. But I still warned her that there are many red flags that she was ignoring. She was ignoring Bernie Sanders, and she thought that when she, like how she did in 2008, she endorsed Obama, and all of her supporters ended up ultimately supporting Obama. But I warned Hillary Clinton myself. I said, you're not going to get all of Bernie Sanders supporters. You may get many of them, but not all of them. This is what I said specifically. Hillary Clinton, as well as Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Barack Obama, all of these Democratic establishment people are severely underestimating the reality that is Bernie or bust. Now, I get why they're doing this, because in 2008, about 45% of Hillary Clinton's supporters they were considered as Puma, party unity my ass. And basically, they were saying that if Hillary Clinton does not win the Democratic nomination, they will not support Barack Obama in November. 45% of them said this, but in the end, Hillary Clinton endorsed Barack Obama and they ended up supporting him. Now, when it comes to the Bernie or Bust movement, only about 25 to 33% of them state that they will not support Hillary Clinton if she is the nominee. Now, that's a smaller portion, but that still could be detrimental if 25 to 33% actually don't support Hillary Clinton. Now, again, it seems logical to think that these individuals will switch and unite behind Hillary, but if you think that way, you're not diving into the details. It's really important to do that. So first and foremost, one reason why this is not the case is because Bernie Sanders draws in independents who wouldn't have supported the Democratic candidate otherwise. There are many independent candidates that will just vote for Green, or that will vote for the Constitutional Party, or some other libertarian party. They're not going to support the Democratic candidate no matter what. So all these new voters that Bernie Sanders would have drawn in will be lost if Hillary Clinton is the nominee. Second of all, Barack Obama had the young vote. Hillary Clinton does not have the young vote. Young voters are not going to come out and vote unless they are excited. If they're not excited by your corporatist candidates, they're just going to stay home and not vote. So what makes you think that they're going to go out of their way to wait in line for 5 hours in some states due to voter suppression tactics when they're not even excited about you? They're just going to stay home. So if you already had the young vote, I would say, you know what, you might be right. But the fact that Hillary Clinton cannot win the young vote and only older, more wealthier voters support her, it's devastating. Now, finally and most importantly, the biggest error in their reasoning is that Bernie Sanders supporters are much, much different than Hillary Clinton supporters. See, the thing about Hillary Clinton supporters is that they're socially liberal, they have a superficial understanding of policy, and what they know about the nuance when it comes to economic policy and foreign policy is probably limited, to be honest. So what they do is they kind of endow trust in the Democratic Party to represent them, because they look at the Republican option and they think, look, I don't want to vote for them, and I'm at least socially liberal. I'm in favor of abortion and gay rights, so I guess I'm going to support them. So they tend to just trust the Democratic Party. They tend to trust these Democratic superstars like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi without actually looking at their policy positions. So they prioritize the candidate above the policy. But when it comes to Bernie Sanders, we prioritize the policy above the candidate. So in other words, if Bernie Sanders were to flip and all of a sudden start backtracking and saying, you know what, maybe we should wait to break up the big banks, maybe we shouldn't reinstate Glass-Steagall, we would all abandon him. This isn't a cult of personality with Bernie Sanders. We support him because of his policy positions. We don't support Hillary Clinton because of her policy positions. And this has been something that's been so difficult for people in the establishment to comprehend. Now, I'm not just making this up. I have a bunch of examples for you as to why Hillary Clinton supporters support the candidate above the policy. So case in point, in 2012, everyone was railing against Mitt Romney for giving speeches to these large financial institutions, for having super PACs, for taking lots of money from special interests. And that was one of the main complaints by Democratic voters who are now supporting Hillary Clinton. But now all of a sudden, Hillary Clinton is taking money from to give speeches to Goldman Sachs. She has 7 super PACs. She is taking so much money from every special interest you can imagine. But now Democrats are sort of walking back their stance on that. Maybe Citizens United isn't so bad. Maybe money in politics is just the way the system works, and you got to play the game to win. So wasn't Mitt Romney just playing the game to win? Why are you reversing your position on this? Again, this is a reason why they support the candidate above the policy. They believe the Democratic Party is truly looking out for their best interests. So that's why when Hillary Clinton endorsed Barack Obama in 2008, like sheep, they followed Hillary Clinton because her supporters are like sheep. They will follow her and defend her no matter what she does. Whereas that's not the case with us and Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, they're quick to blame James Comey. They're quick to point the finger at Russia and say that the DNC leaks and the release of John Podesta's emails are what ultimately cost her the election. But your campaign was bereft not only of strategy, but vision as well. You didn't have a message. What were you trying to communicate to voters, Hillary? I'm with her. Okay, cool. What does that mean? I don't need to prove to you that I'm with you. You need to prove that you're with me, and you didn't. And that's why you lost. That's why you did not capture the Rust Belt like Obama did. And that's why Donald Trump will be the president. So thanks, Hillary.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.